steal all side, ride me, baby. I ain't never gonna stop. Come on now, baby. Ride me straight to the top. Yeah, straight to the top.
We can get into
So,
it. We could have a back
I don't
and
know
forth
if I
on
want
that
to talk.
one.
I don't know if I want to because I
It'll
did
come
spend
up.
2 hours talking about shit like that
It'll
with
come
him,
up.
and I had to explain to him even at one point like how like if you have sex with somebody the night before, you can't just ejaculate on them in the morning while they're asleep and have that still be okay.
Yeah, I agree.
We had to talk about that too because
Mostly.
that's another issue.
Unless you
know,
pre-negotiated everything.
That's exactly what we talked about, right? If you're into this, I said, yeah, by absolutely. But when one of you is asleep and you don't have it, there is no consent. So we had to have that kind of fucking discussion with this guy, and I'm just like, I don't want to do that again right now.
Well, especially don't want to have
It
to
was
educate
heavy.
somebody for
But
an
it was
hour and a
trying-
half
oh,
on
fuck,
the
dude. And that's kind of
subtleties
what it
of
felt like a
consent,
little
yeah.
bit, you know, like because he keep making these arguments where he's like a lot of these right wing talking points where it's like, well, yeah, but once you're married to someone, I mean, consent kind of goes out the window, right? And I'm like, nope. I was like, no. I said, even if you do something, even if you do an act with someone 1,000 times,
We're in it, aren't we, Russ?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like 1,001, they may decide they don't want. Oh, for fuck's sakes.
Maybe we can like come back to that.
All
We'll
right,
get back
or
to
avoid
that.
it altogether. So this is Bad Ideas, Good Stories.
Number 32.
Number 32.
Fuck, we're giving
I'm
yeah.
Dusty. That's Pat.
I'm Pat. That's Dusty.
Yeah, we're trying to. Well, we're giving her. Yeah, I feel like we've taken a little bit of time off again, but it's all ebb and flow, baby. It's all ebb and flow.
Well, yeah, when we take a little bit of a holiday between our filming or recording, it's like it gives us more time to do stuff.
Well,
right?
yeah, with there being nothing going on, having a little extra time to find something to squeeze in is nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a nice like segue in. I'm not sure where we're gonna cut the audio off. Like, let's talk about consent. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. So what we were just talking about, we just go this real quick
Yeah,
because I
let's
can
get
talk
right
about
into
the podcast thing.
I doubt it'll be
So
real quick,
I'm
but-
sure it'll be fine. No, I just so I did a podcast a couple weeks ago, I guess. Canadian Talk with Stefan.
That's the second time, right?
Yes, and actually we ended up doing 2 episodes while we were there because we just ran longer than what he normally does, and it was fun. I enjoyed talking to the guy, but yeah, like he wanted to talk about kind of like some local kind of news in the music scene with what was going on with Bombargo.
There's a local band, Bombargo.
Yeah.
And let's give them a cliff notes for anybody who's not local or hasn't been. Let's just get into it, whatever.
Okay.
So there's this local band, Bombargo, and my understanding is, I'm not sure if they were a band when they said that they were the snowball team, that they were the Japanese snowball team, or it was just kind of a joke. They took an ad out and they were hiring actresses and models to film a video. And during this video, apparently some of the models felt that there was inappropriate behavior happening from band members or that of the band Bombargo. Now, they were in a previous outfit, I think 6 years ago, but now they're in a halfway somebody band called Bombargo that are also in the new Bill and Ted movie. And
my comment at the time was sheepdogs, they ain't.
yeah, okay, I don't know them. Like, okay, so
No, I'm
that's the
just
thing.
kidding. I'm just kidding. You're like big time bands from Saskatoon because that got me on a rant too about that.
Yeah, we're from
anyways,
Saskatoon.
yeah.
So they're half somebodies now, and because they're half somebodies, 2 of the members of the band are being, I guess, Me Too accusations because of this video shoot that had happened 6 years ago.
Sure.
That's the long and short of it. Well, that's the short of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the broad strokes of what's going on, and that's honestly that's as much detail as I would like to do because like I know that there's more of the story on Facebook through people's posts and shit like that, and like the one woman citing her account who was the elder that wasn't 17 at the time because there was a
minor.
There was a minor involved, and that was the one that apparently the real uncomfortable shit happened with. And
So what was the uncomfortable shit? If
okay,
we wanna...
the real problem in the whole thing, like other than people being uncomfortable, not feeling comfortable was going on, and maybe not speaking up or whatever, was there was one scene where they decided to do it in a separate room where it was supposed to be kind of a makeout scene, and it was I guess the 2 brothers, the director or whoever, this girl, go into this other room and do it. Whatever happened in there happened where she was uncomfortable with it at a bare minimum, and he did come out with a hard on after making out with her, and so that's kind of the nuts and bolts of the story on that. Now, whatever that means now as far as punishment, I don't fucking know. You know what I mean? Like, do what you're gonna do, cancel culture, I guess.
So
But
and now, like the counterpoint to that is that these guys said we hired actresses to play the snow bunnies that were going to be the flirty girls that were going to make out with the snowball team. And when they started protesting, the band said, "Well, you're actresses. Do acting. Use your acting, Gary."
Well, and that was kind of the argument also that was well, not argument, but just the other side that was put forward during this podcast. But also if these women are if they're if they're actresses, if they're models, shouldn't they have a little bit of an armor built up to this sort of thing? Like, shouldn't they be kind of tough about that? I totally did as well. He tried making the comparison that it was, kind of like a steel worker getting cut and getting used to it. I'm like, nope, not the same thing, but we'll move past that. Oh, sorry. What I was going to say was my whole take on, you can say whatever you want. I just feel like I talked about this for 2 hours already, is my whole take on this was that at a bare minimum, looking back on it, no dog in the fight, it wasn't professional. If you,
I agree.
Because I said, if you're on One Tree Hill or one of these other teeny bopper TV shows where people are having makeout scenes, I don't imagine that they shoot it in a different room from everybody else, isolated. Then the guy comes out with a hard on, because that doesn't seem very professional to me. Plus,
that's him. He's not a professional actor.
That's
He's
what I'm
just a
saying. But
guy
so in what was going on, though, you know what I mean? You go, well, it was maybe a kiss. Yeah, but maybe it was more than that. We don't know, right? So I'm not going to. Obviously, it wasn't professional. It wasn't right. And then they ended up not using any of that in their video as well. On top of it, it's kind of like
I thought it was because that the management agency contacted them, said that there was complaints about the content, so they said, okay, we're not going to be putting it out.
Sure.
And
well, yeah,
was
whatever
part
the
of that.
reasoning was. But I'm
Either
just
way.
saying, like, the thing that built the biggest stink around this that they're still talking about 5 years later is then the thing that didn't make it into the video and at least doesn't seem professional. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, actually, you got to
Fucking
keep in mind
everyone
that
will judge how they judge, I guess. I don't know.
I'm a fetish educator.
Sure.
And I'm an erotic artist. I do photography of topless people. I got 2 shoots tonight, but at the same time, I've negotiated in advance. So you're going to come here. What exactly are you comfortable with? What are you uncomfortable with? Do you want supervision? My partner's going to be there. You can bring a friend, and this is the parameters that we're going to be working within. If I take liberties or I step outside those parameters, I'm breaking trust. I'm violating a contract, whether it's verbal or not. I'm not just saying, hey, you want to do a photo shoot? Get naked. We're going to take a picture of your pussy. That's a bit of a liberty. And I would probably deserve to be called out for that. I also disclose, hey, we're going to be in physical contact. I might contact you, and you know what? There might be physiological changes with me. That doesn't mean I'm going to use it on you or anything like that. And I think responsible consent culture pre-negotiates all of this stuff.
Absolutely.
And if part of your acting gig is, hey, we're going to need you to simulate some intimate contact. Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah.
You need to put that on the table right off the bat.
Well, and I assume, again, professionally, that would be in the actual contract.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It wasn't just be a verbal or implied one. It would be written down somewhere. Yeah, no, there will be scenes of partial nudity, or there will be whatever you may be asked to do. I don't think anybody doing it right negotiates that shit on the fly.
Well, right. Well, what I saw reading all of it was a bunch of inept, unprofessional individuals on both sides of the fence diving into something that's going to be cool and edgy that goes sideways, and then both sides are like, oh, what the fuck? And the modeling agency should have asked what is exactly expected of our staff, and the people hiring them should have said, this is exactly what we're expecting of you before it all happened. Hindsight's 20/20. When you have 6 years to mull over a situation on how toxic it was, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But the other side here is, do you need to go after this band? And did you give a shit about them the last however many years they've been playing, or until they got a little bit of notoriety in Bill and Ted, and then it's a handy time to put it on Facebook and to blow it all up?
Yeah.
I don't
even though like the Bill and Ted thing, I didn't even know that, and I live in Saskatoon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm not even on Facebook. I've
Again,
heard
people
about
are like,
this from-
their notoriety, they're blowing up. I'm like, okay, I guess so. I live in this town. I'm not even gonna get into it. But anyways,
This is the extent of shits I give.
exactly.
Like,
right?
I don't like the
And
band. I don't know the band. Don't
Doesn't
listen to the
seem
music.
professional. Doesn't seem like the right thing to do in this. And they
Douchey
also
kids
they
doing
also did
douchey things.
seem a little dismissive in like any of the kind of responses and stuff that I'd seen with them, where it was,
It was
kind of
definitely
like
a canned apology.
it didn't seem sincere,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, that's another issue people are having with it. So I mean, deal with them accordingly and fucking whatever. Who gives a shit?
Well, it's very interesting. We talk about this in the fetish community a lot, that we're underground doing edgy shit all the time, but we're on the forefront. We need to be on the forefront of consent culture, because we actually, at any given time, we're binding people. We're doing impact play.
Yeah.
And if anything hasn't been negotiated, or if you have the littlest hiccup of a consent misunderstanding, it's bigger than Me Too. It's a full-on sexual assault charge, right?
Well,
So-
and you're part of a community also, let alone the regular fucking community we all exist in. But
Yeah.
that's something that's like everybody's on a message board and everybody fucking knows what everybody's up to. And
The underground community largely polices itself, and they recognize predators right off the bat, and there's sometimes, depending on the community, police liaisons to work with those people. I had a friend actually just recently try and approach me, and we had a discussion about opening a brothel right? And I thought, well, it'd be interesting, but I really have issues with a lot of the dominant male attitude that would go to a place like that. So I countered. I'm like, well, why don't we, if we're going to do this, why don't we invest in a dungeon and train young women to be dominatrixes?
And
Where-
that already exists.
Well,
You don't have to
it's-
change legislation to make that
it's
happen.
common. You just get your adult service license.
Yeah.
You train people to use the tools properly. There's really no sexual contact. It's just a service.
Yeah.
And then that way I would feel a lot more comfortable with the clients that would come there. And it's putting power back in the women's hands, as opposed to the idea of a brothel where all of the women are these subservient,
Yeah, I can see that being a different mentality. You go to a dungeon or a brothel, the brothel, I'm king. They're
Yeah.
crawling to me, right? Whereas in the dungeon, I'm the one doing the crawling.
Yes, exactly. And I would also like to do a community service where you could teach people to play consensually and all of that stuff. I think that would be
And see, in that then builds a bigger, broader community, gets it more public, and that's maybe of the more extreme aspects of something like that, of what people can picture. When you picture a brothel, like they may be picturing sex acts, but they may be not picturing someone being tied up and whipped because, like, oh no, that's far beyond that. So if you can acclimate a community to those aspects, then you go, okay, well now you guys know this is erotic, right? Like, where some people are, this is a sexual thing for them. That's not for everybody, but for some people it is. Why are we not embracing that aspect of it now that you'd be comfortable with this, what seems like the extreme end of it?
Well, it's only extreme to those people that aren't involved. And like,
That's who's legislating this. This is who votes.
Yeah.
People that aren't involved in it dictate what's happening with these communities all the time.
it's interesting. We've been watching this series called The Fosters. My partner and I were like on, I think, the second or third season, maybe the fourth. But the Fosters are like two lesbian moms, and they got a couple gay kids in school, and they're dealing with sexual education in school. And their gay son is like, I'm not getting any information on how to do this safely, what I'm supposed to do, how to navigate this. Same thing with young lesbian kids. Where is that education? Where do they get it? They go to pornography. And is pornography an acceptable education?
It is not.
No.
Let's answer that now.
Yeah.
Before we even start to mull over the question, stop using entertainment as instruction manuals.
Well, right, and I think this band, they probably were educated with a lot of porn of, I want to have this softcore kind of vibe, and you're going to come in and make out with the guys. Well, man, you haven't done your work. You haven't done your consent stuff. You've been educated by porn, likely. It's not a good education platform. So I think, reversing the script or flipping the script a little bit and, playing with gender norms is a kind of a healthy thing now and then.
Right? Totally. Well, okay. So this is not really on the same topic, but I'd mentioned this name before we started, Matt Gaetz.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else is familiar with.
I'm familiar with the name. You're going to have to fill me in on who he is.
Okay, I'll give you the backstory real quick on him. So he's a congressman out of Florida. So that should already paint a picture for you. Young, he's 38, I believe. And he's been in Congress for fucking 4 years now, so he got in relatively early. But his father was also a big-time Florida politician who got him into Florida politics and then used that to translate into national politics. He's a millionaire. Guy, this kind of guy that his old man got him out of an impaired when he was a kid.
Wealthy, old money, old boys club.
Exactly. Yeah, a real frat boy. Generally considered to be a kind of garbage piece of shit by both sides. Like, even people that worked with him were like, "Yeah, I got nothing good to say about Matt Gaetz because I can't be saying anything poor about him on camera."
Oh.
Doing shit like, even when he was in Florida in Congress, he was he'd had a game with a bunch of the other male congressmen there that they had a point system based on how many interns you could bang or other married Congress people, and
That's absolute frat boy shit.
that's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So this is what this guy was doing before he got into national politics. So his whole controversy this last week kind of it ties in. I'll get to the end of it first, and then go back. I guess he's now being investigated and looking at probably charges of sex trafficking of a minor, using sexual favors to gain access to a politician. All kinds of really shady shit like that. And it all stems from his best pal in the whole world, this dude, Joel Greenberg, who was a tax collector for Seminole County, Florida. And very small, minor fucking position when it comes to government. Like, that's some local government shit. But this guy, as soon as he got in, and if anybody wants to know really about this, watch some fucking Rachel Maddow about this, because she's got some really good stuff, given the backstory on this Greenberg. But this guy, last year, he gets picked up in August, I believe it was, for sex trafficking, for stealing identifications, using his position in the tax collector's thing to go into, like, finding licenses that were supposed to be destroyed and then taking them before they destroyed and then using them to create fake IDs. and he was also using his position to stalk political opponents. There's allegations that him and Gates and another guy tried to get together to even create a fake political opponent during some of these smaller local elections to split the left-leaning vote. So try to put out like a kind of a Democrat candidate and possibly even bank them financially. That's the shit they're looking into now. But they picked this guy up on the sex trafficking, and once they picked him up, or was that the first fucking thing? No, sorry. Sex trafficking wasn't what got him originally. It was one of the other, because that's how shady this guy is. He was like a walking fucking crime spree. As soon as he got this job, he was just ripping people off. And the whole time, he's partying with this Matt Gaetz. Like, Matt Gaetz was calling him his wingman, and everybody said it was kind of like an entourage situation. But this Joel Greenberg guy was the turtle. You know, like, I mean, he was the hanger-on kind of fucking guy.
All right.
So as this Matt Gaetz is acting like he's some sort of fucking superstar, and he's banging everybody all over the place, and he's trying to say, oh, he 2 weeks ago tries to come out right off the bat and goes on Fox News on Tucker Carlson's show and says, oh, there's going to be these accusations coming out about me, and they're crazy, and I think people are trying to misunderstand my generosity towards previous girlfriends, and he even gets to one point on the show where he goes to Tucker Carlson, and he goes, well, and I'm not the only person on this screen right now who's had allegations of impropriety, and you know, we all know how that worked out, and so you know how this is, and it's like trying to drag Tucker into his garbage with him, going like, well, yeah, and you, even one of my girlfriends, you met them, like we were out for dinner with you and your wife a few years ago, I'm sure you remember that. And he's like, I don't remember that lady at all, I know what you're talking about. And they haven't had him on there since. And like, Matt Gaetz is a guy who in the last 4 fucking years has been on Fox News over 300 times.
Okay.
So like,
he's like their golden boy,
2-3 times a week. He's on Fox News somewhere talking about something. And since then, fucking crickets on this guy. They won't have him on. They're not talking to him. There's almost no reference to him in the fucking news. But everything keeps building up. So the news of this, he kind of broke it himself last week when he goes on Fox News and spills the fucking beans basically before anything starts coming out. Well, and what happened was, I don't know if it was earlier that week, but this Joel Greenberg guy, he had been on like a home release while waiting to go to trial, and he'd violated that in some way. So now they had him in jail, and they're like, okay, you're going to trial right away. And his first court date was just on fucking Thursday here. Well, he goes into court, had to plead not guilty because they said they were going to plead not guilty before.
So this is for the human trafficking.
This is for human trafficking.
Okay.
This dude's got 31 different charges against him, and like at the federal fucking level.
Sorry for the
and pick a crime, right? And so this guy, he goes in there and he pleads not guilty because he's been, I'm not guilty. They go into the court, pleads not guilty. His lawyer comes outside, tells the reporters, yeah, no, he had to plead not guilty because they can't give us a plea deal if he pleads guilty. So we have to plead not guilty, and then we're going to work with the feds and get a plea deal. And basically they know that he's got something that he's going to flip on somebody, and they didn't start investigating this Matt Gaetz until they picked up his friend, and they start going through his computers, and they start seeing these transactions that don't make any sense through Venmo and these other dating apps and shit, like specifically these sugar daddy apps.
Okay.
And so again, there's not supposed to be any money changing hands, but trips, hotel rooms, all that kind of shit.
Yeah,
right?
Straight up just for prostitution.
And this dude's basically being his pimp. So what he was doing was on a public fucking Venmo, Matt Gaetz was sending him money, and then the guy was sending it to women to then meet up with Gaetz. And they've got him picked up also the same guy Gaetz flying down to where the fuck was it? Somewhere in the Caribbean with a legal weed entrepreneur / hand surgeon who apparently paid for the trip and paid for all the prostitutes that were to fly with them and meet them down there. And those ones were all of age. But sorry, I can get to the core of this actually. So anyways, so that guy, prostitutes, and the idea with that was after that, Matt Gaetz tried putting this guy up to be the Attorney General of Florida even. You know what I mean? Like this guy that he's got his fuck vacations with. So at the core of this whole fucking thing, though, what's really getting everybody sick is the child sex trafficking part.
Yeah, like
where it's a 17-year-old girl who both Gaetz and this Joel Greenberg were dating, air quotes, at the same time.
See, it's a complicated thing because I'm pro sex work, consensual adults, what consensual adults do with their own money and their bodies. I think that's completely them. That being said, in the USA, if it's a crime, it's a crime. And if you're a politician, that should even be worse of a crime. If you're breaking the law and you're in a position of trust, there you go. Now, I'm pro sex work. You know, if you want to be a sugar baby and you say, hey, you give me $3,000 a month and you can hook up with me 6 times, you know, that's a negotiated thing. Go for it. Now, if you're exploiting people with their passports, or if you're exploiting people that are in a position of vulnerability, we're getting to a different game.
Yeah.
So the 17-year-old thing,
That's the big problem is the 17-year-old where everybody, okay, it's a child. Plus, even with the sex trafficking, they said like, I mean, if there are places where it is legal, you have to go and do that there. You can't
Bring them with
you.
you.
Can't ship somebody
Yeah.
across state lines to come to you for sex. You just can't do it. And so that's where they're caught with these adult women that they were flying around and moving them here and there. So that's no good also, right? But
See,
anyways, this dude's fucked. He's buried. Like and so the guy's attorney comes out last week and says basically like, yeah, Matt Gaetz should be very concerned. You know, like who else is this guy gonna fucking flip on? And Gaetz also, the White House tried saying it never happened, and this is Trump's White House, tried to say it never happened, but he also did allegedly try to get a pardon, like a preemptive pardon, before any of this came out, because he knew when his buddy was in fucking jail and it was picked up, shit was going down
shit's
back
hitting
in
the fan.
August.
Let's-
Like he knew that. Even
Kind
if
of
he didn't
sounds
know he
like
was being
before
investigated.
somebody was kicked out of office there in the White House.
And this,
Everybody's
and
gonna
this
need
was even,
pardons.
well, that was what he was trying to do, because that's what he was doing. He was pardoning everybody he fucking could, but he couldn't pardon somebody preemptively. They had to have already committed a crime and been going to fucking court for it, right? So
Pardon you for
that's what
everything
this guy's
that
trying to
comes
get
up.
out in front of. Couldn't fucking do that. And Bill Barr, like the former attorney general, that's who okayed this. So it's not some liberal fucking conspiracy where Biden came in and I was trying to get them because they tried painting that. He also, right when this first happened, tried to come out and say that there was an attempt to blackmail him and his father with this information about this investigation. He's like, they're making these disgusting allegations about an investigation and they're trying to blackmail me for $25 million. And what it was never a blackmail attempt. What it was a group that said, hey, we think we know how we can get your son. We heard about what's happening. We think we know how we can get your son, to this wealthy Florida politician, his Matt Gaetz' father. He says, we think we can get your son into the good graces with the new president if you get you to give us $25 million so we can go and find this guy who I believe was a CIA operative who was in the Middle fucking East somewhere that was, most everybody believes he's dead, but there's still some people that, I can't remember the guy's name, but they think that he might be alive. And then if they could spend the $25 million to go over there and get him, then bring him back, then Biden would be like, oh, fuck, thank you so much for finding this guy, and then give Matt Gaetz a pardon.
Weird.
That was what was proposed to him. So then he tried to paint that as though he was being blackmailed. And again, and has nothing to do with it. Like even that has nothing to do with the initial investigation. This person who brought this about has nothing to do with that whatsoever. It's an outside party. So right away he tried to muddy the water with this kind of shit.
Long story short, he's like rich, white privileged, frat boy, borderline sexual predator, or outright sexual predator that figured that his position and his wealth could get him off, and now he's getting tagged pretty hard.
Yep.
Which you mentioned before the cameras were on. It's basically encapsulates American politics in a nutshell.
Well, that's right. That's what I said. I as soon as I was listening to this story start last week, I phoned the old lady. I was like, I'm going to send you a video. I said, I want you to just pay attention to just this one and this. No, this is what I've been talking about for the last couple of years. I said, this is it. Because and it ties all sorts of shit. Like this guy, he was also like, he was using, working with the Proud Boys to do other bullshit. Like it was like every crazy part of right-wing fucking nut job conspiracy shit all tied up in one story in Florida. And it's just getting bigger and bigger.
Even beyond right-wing, left-wing, I would say this is power, elite, status, privilege. Because you'll get rich Democrats doing the same fucking shit.
Very
How
similar.
much was Bill Clinton on Epstein's planes?
Yes,
you know.
Yeah,
So,
no, I shouldn't make it a red-blue fucking thing. It's just one side's insanely infected with it.
Well,
you know what I mean?
really,
you know what I mean? Like it's consistent because it's like, again, this guy that spurred all this, he was a local tax collector. He's not a big-time guy, but he's another guy who's seen this system that he sees again in Florida, especially being a Republican down there. It's like they can't not get elected, so it's kind of like they do what they fucking want, right?
it's like a fiefdom or a little, a lordship in a feudal system where it's like, who's going to say anything? We own the knights, we own the police,
and
right?
for 3 generations, it's been people with your last name carrying the position.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. It's almost like a Kennedys, right? Well, although the Kennedys did get away with a lot of
and
stuff.
they're still doing it.
Yeah.
Joe Kennedy, I think it's Joe Kennedy. He's a piece of shit. He's no good. He's still in politics. And just because he says he got a Kennedy last name doesn't mean he's some fucking
Golden
left-wing
boy.
god. Yeah.
Well, and that's just it. And everybody, the red, blue, or the right, left. I don't think that's it. I think it's basically male privilege, rich entitlement.
Rich.
What can I get away with because I've got enough money? Everybody's having sex with prostitutes. Everybody's doing shady stuff on the side, and they've got their little entourage to cover up their tracks. And what I think is happening is the public is getting wind of it more. And well, it's been happening for years,
Well, and it's just it hasn't they haven't been so blatant with it. People haven't been so obvious. You know, like it's like a whole new level. And this is a guy who's kind of like, again, like I say, leaning into it, kind of just being like, you know, it's all, I'm gonna go on TV and I'm gonna fucking go. He was speaking at a women's group at one of Trump's fucking things on Friday.
Well,
you know
I'll
what I mean? He's up
guarantee
for
you-
sex trafficking of a fucking child, and he's speaking in front of a women's group.
Well, and that's a weird thing about that right wing stuff. If he says Jesus enough, you're going to have a women's group saying, "Well, he's just a flawed man, and you know, boys will be boys, and all of that stuff." And we're praying for him, and he's going to find his way.
Well, and how about Bill Clinton though?
Yeah,
Hey, what
but
about the other guys? Though?
That guy needed to be impeached for a blowjob. And now,
right,
right?
Again, though, yeah. How about Bill Clinton? Let's keep it consistent. That if there's consensual sex acts, it'll get you kicked out of the job. I would think non-consensual or ones where you fucking lured somebody into it should also
Children.
get you kicked out
Children.
of the job. Right? Al Franken didn't have the job for a picture with a fake air honk.
Yeah, so that's pretty brutal stuff. And we're living in some fucked up
Oh,
times.
fuck, it's wild. It's very interesting though. And again, I can't stop laughing every time because this is the guy who last year in fucking Congress comes in with a fucking gas mask on to mock everybody about the COVID and what masks are going to be. Like he's that level of troll. Like,
Well, so is Trump, right? Like he's just
Fucking
next
nice,
level.
man.
It's entertainment
Yeah.
as opposed to.
so it's lovely seeing them.
I guess it's kind of like Rob Ford out in, or who is the mayor of Toronto that got let go. Oh, geez, smoking crack
yeah.
with
Was
people.
I can't remember. Was Doug Ford?
Yeah.
because his brother's the fucking premier of Ontario.
Okay, so it's Doug and
because
Rob
he's
Ford.
dead. The one that was the mayor is dead.
Oh, okay.
And, if I remember correctly, and then his brother's the premier now.
So there's a new
They both look like Chris
outrage.
Farley.
He went and got his vaccine. Doug Ford, I think
Yeah.
it is, got his vaccination, and as soon as the vaccination hit, he just went, "Ooh." He pretended to die.
See, and that's funny.
But the outrage,
But yeah, man, it's not.
and he stood up and he laughed, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But then the outrage is that's so disrespectful from everybody who has died due to the vaccinations, and I'm like, he's just making light of a heavy situation.
Here's my issue with it: is when somebody who wants to go see these things fucking make you sick clips just that, and they go, see even this fucking guy, and it's him dying immediately afterwards. Like, you son of a bitch! And I get it was a funny joke, but you just gave morons fucking something to work with. They can trim down and take out of context. But yeah, no, I think that getting outraged over that like that's disrespectful to anybody who did. Come on.
See, and
I don't know. You're looking to be outraged at that point. You really want to find
You're
a reason to be
seeking
mad at that.
something
And I
to-
think he's a piece of shit. I look for any reason to get mad at that guy. But again, this is one where you're definitely that's what you're going to get mad about. Not any of his policies, about fucking anything else. It's that he was goofy about that. Okay.
See, I don't know. What was it? Rob Ford, the mayor. I kind of had a weird respect for the guy because,
Well, they're
of
kind
course,
of a dynasty too. Hey, like
I
their
guess,
family
yeah.
fucking ran shit, and that's why he got the gig. You know,
Yeah.
like again, bulletproof, big
I'm
fat
going-
fucking white rich guy, man.
I'm
you
going
know?
into the hood. I'm smoking rock with guys in Toronto, and he's like, "Hey, fuck, what's up? Let's do this. Let's drink this." And like, man, you kind of in touch with your constituents. Like, that's what I'm thinking. Like, he's not removed from
Down
it.
to earth
He's
he is.
in it.
That's what I
you
like
know?
about real salt of the earth.
He is a
He's
salt
a real,
of the
real
earth,
crack rock of
crack
the earth.
smoking Toronto guy. Yeah, that's him. And then like people would
Yeah.
try and criticize him in the city hall, and he's just like, blow
Yeah.
them off like, fuck you, whatever,
Yeah.
get the fuck out of my way.
Right.
And I think in some
he's-
cities you need to be that guy. He's kind of like
To
the
some
Batman.
degree, you gotta have a bit of a fucking thick skin and just go, okay, well, whatever. You know,
It's like Batman, the mayor of Gotham, needs to
Yeah.
be a bit of a motherfucker.
well,
right?
but Batman has some policies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Batman has some shit he's trying to do.
Oh, I'm not
you know?
saying he's Batman. I'm just saying he's the mayor of Gotham.
That'd be the balance.
Yeah, right.
I'm not saying you're Batman. You're just mayor. Yeah, and they're having a rough time there. Fuck, 3,000 new cases a day in
Yeah.
Ontario right away. And I mean, we're still worst in the country at everybody per capita and only getting worse and constantly like, nope, we're just going to do what we're doing.
Well,
Not
we'll
change
wait
the
and
course.
see. We'll wait and see.
Yeah, fuck.
we-
That's what we've been doing.
We were fuck. I'm just
That
thankful
new
I can make a
variant's
living.
just tearing through right now.
I'm just thankful I can make a living.
Yeah.
And
No, me too. Fuck, I had one of my best weeks last week in a while. So
I'm biding my time
Works
till
going
they
well for
shut
me.
down the shop. And like the new rules is if you catch, like I just got tested 3 days ago, so I don't have it. Don't have it. Despite if I cough or sniffle, it's a legitimate cold. Yeah, if you catch or if you come in contact with somebody who's come in contact with a new variant, it's a mandatory 24-day quarantine. I can't afford it. I can't afford to take 3 weeks off
Right.
work. I don't know who can. And I'm not sure what infrastructure is out there government-wise to offset the cost of living for that period of time.
Well, you know what? I never looked into it because I haven't had to worry about it. But I don't doubt that at a federal level they still have a CERB program of some sort.
Yeah,
where
they've
it's
got
like
something,
if you're
I've
off
heard.
if you're off because of that, then you can collect during that time. And it might not be CERB. It might be, well, here you normally couldn't get unemployment. Now you can get unemployment, and for this chunk of time, because they did make that flexible last year at the federal level. But again, it'd be nice to have some sort of fucking guidance on some of this.
Well,
shit.
they're so fucking confused.
Because they left a lot of it
scrambling.
up to the fucking provinces, which is what the provinces fucking wanted. Because we don't want the feds telling us what to do, and fucking Ottawa doesn't need to know what the fuck we're doing in Calgary. And it's like, okay, well, what are you going to do? We're not sure yet, but we'll figure it out. And
Well,
it's like,
even
fucking,
then-
are you though? Like,
Well, even the CERB, like we have here in Saskatoon, for those that aren't local, there's this place called the Lighthouse. Apparently, there was even people in the correctional collecting CERB payments.
Oh, really?
Because it was just a 1-800 number that you
right.
call, and
Yeah.
you give them your social insurance number, and they do a direct deposit into your account. So in the Lighthouse specifically, there was all these people that are living check to check on their welfare that said, "Oh, I can get $2,000 a month. Let's fucking jump on it." And they did that, and they were collecting welfare as well as CERB.
Sure.
And then when they got caught, they said, "Well, you're going to have to pay it back." How?
yeah.
How are they
Because
gonna
that
pay
was
it
the
back?
rule, right? It was like, if you do work outside these boundaries, you just pay it back later, right?
Yeah.
And for someone who is taking 3 weeks off from their regular full-time job, that is a possibility. It'll suck, but it'll be a possibility.
Yeah.
Those absolutely not the case, and that's why
How are you
I
going to
think-
squeeze blood from a stone?
That's why I think that's part of why they started to adjust it more to working with people's unemployment, because then it's like, okay, well, no, you just get yourself on unemployment, which means you got to go down to the unemployment office and get the paperwork and do that shit. So then those
can't
people
do
can't
that.
just do
I'm
that.
self-employed.
No, that's what I'm saying though.
So-
It's because they did expand it last time
Oh,
to
okay.
include people who were self-employed
all right.
and
Yeah,
whatnot.
yeah,
right?
that's
they
what
changed the
CERB
rules,
was, I think,
and
a
then you
little.
still get the same idea where you can help a blanket bunch of people. It's just a little more work that, again, people who are staying at the Lighthouse and aren't going to go do the paperwork.
not a
and stuff.
1-800 number,
Exactly.
yes, no
Yeah,
buttons
you can't
and
borrow
yeah.
somebody's phone and get it done.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
actually got to go in and fill out the paperwork. And again, I think it'll make it. It's a day longer because you have to go spend the afternoon doing that bullshit. But I still think it'll make it just as accessible for everybody else that actually does legitimately need it.
So I've got this weird thing that I've been noticing, and I wanted to bounce the idea off of you. I've talked to a couple people
Bounce
about
away.
it. Bounce away. I'm noticing a psychological or just consciousness shift in people. And I think it's due to the stress and anxiety of the uncertainty of living in this environment where I've kind of gone through like real ups and downs, like almost manic, depressive, bipolar stuff when I don't normally do that as a result of the anxiety surrounding, will I have a job next week? Will they shut down my tattoo shop? What will I do as another career? My brother looked at me like, are you for fucking real? Because I was talking to my client the other day about what am I going to do as another career when I can't do this anymore? And he's like, are you for fucking real? And I'm like, this is a legitimate concern for me.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I can't work from home. What am I going to do as a career? I've spent 30 years investing in one trade that can be shut down now, like that, because of this virus. And I'm watching all these other people, whether it's anxiety or riots happening or shootings or people just bugging out in stores. And it makes me wonder about the psychological consequence of the entire phenomenon, what it's doing to all of us.
Well, this is something that I've felt the whole fucking time, and that again, this is like I've talked about it on this one before. The concept of an apocalypse, a reckoning, and end of times. This is that for those people because you come out of this change. That person you were before, even if it's not a physical thing, you don't actually die, but you go through a spiritual transformation or a mental awakening of some sort while you're going through these traumatic and tough to deal with times. That person you were basically fucking dies, and this new one exists, right?
Well, it's
And
a transition to
they're
a new
fucking
way
right.
of life, right?
That's how I feel this is, and I feel like people you'll anecdotally know lots of people who have done. Your brother's a great example. Had a fucking horrible health episode, changed his life dramatically, never been healthier.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I had to get to that bottom of the fucking pit to do that thing. So this is pushing a lot of people to a pit that they've never even fucking knew existed before. People that were like, no, I'm never going to worry about a mortgage. I'm never going to worry about that stuff. I've always had the money. Well, now they're shut down on a career that maybe was not able to continue to function, or shit changed like how the market's have, and all of a sudden they can't afford their house. Well, those start to become those transitional fucking times, and people break down and they're in their basement packing their stuff by themselves, crying about how the fuck did I get here 5 years ago? It was me and the kids and everybody. Now I'm by myself in a basement fucking suite. What the fuck's going on?
Well,
You
what
know,
about
and
these
that's happening
people-
to lots of people now. And sorry, I don't mean to keep ranting on this. I just feel, again, that's what makes people better lots, right? Everybody you know who's had those kind of
Yeah,
things and are doing
challenge
well
and-
now, they're like, no, man, I had a really fucking low time. Bop, bop, bop. I'm here now, right?
Yeah, those people that come out. Like, there's the other side that those people that don't come out of
That's
it. and-
most people, though.
Yeah,
Most
that's a
people
good-
go through shitty times, and they might be broken, and they might be changed in some way, but you usually get through it. Not everybody comes out homeless or totally fucked, right?
See, okay, yeah. And I'm like thinking about people that are like right now living, well, they're house poor or truck poor,
Yeah, man. That's
you know,
that's who that's starting to affect, right?
yeah, and like if all of a sudden they can't work and they miss those payments. I was talking about it again last night, and I know I keep ranting about it, but like all it would take would be the government cracking on the banks and saying, guess what? For a couple months, fuck your mortgages. Fuck your loans. You don't get paid back.
Yep.
You're putting a pause until this whole global pandemic.
There's a plague. We don't have to worry
Yeah.
about interest rates
Just
and
we're
mortgages.
going to pause everything,
Yep.
and it'll go back to normal, but no new interest. You're just putting a pause on your payments. Your banks, hey, you don't have to pay any property tax. Everything's going to be shut down for a couple months while we shut it down. Nobody would care about going to work. They say, okay, you're going to stay at home. Guess what? You don't have to pay your rent. You don't have, because your landlord doesn't have to pay his mortgage, and you know all of that stuff. Just it would pan out.
Yeah.
But
Well, you know what, and you know what's just sort of missing in that we didn't have with this last one was because there would have been some people who were like, no, this is fine. You know what I mean? I can have these 3 months off. I'm
the
comfortable.
dog in the room.
I've got
This is fine.
yeah,
Fire
right.
burning
Yeah,
everything.
but no, like they're not panicking like I was. They weren't panicking, right? But they're also got nothing now. Because maybe their job was their driving force. Maybe that's what they did that gave them joy and whatever. All of a sudden, it's like, no, we can't go anywhere. All these things are locked down, and we have nothing to replace those space and time. So if you're someone who loves projects and you had all these things sitting on the back burner, it's fucking awesome. You got all this time, you can actually get into it. But if you're somebody who's like, no, like what I did was fucking work, look after my
was
kids, do
my-
that
yeah,
shit.
yeah.
I don't have hobbies. I never had time for them. And you can develop them, or you can get really in a weird fucking place and spiral kind of out of control and go, what the fuck do I do with my hands
Grab
for the
a
next
bottle.
3 weeks? That's what fucking happens, right? I mean, we've seen it in the last year. They've never had more fucking overdoses in Saskatchewan
I
than we
guess.
had in the last year. And that's definitely a result of, two things: shittier drugs in the market because of less flow of drugs because of COVID shutting down borders, and more people doing them because
Yeah.
they're fucking depressed, fucked up, whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah, they got downtime. They have
Fucking, even just downtime, right?
Yeah.
Even just fucking around. It started out at the beginning of it. Oh, fucking do this every once in a while because it was fun. And then you're 9 months into it, and you're like, it's part of my personality now. How did I become this
this
addiction?
is what I do.
What the
This is what I do.
fuck? Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of a tough one. And like when we're talking about the loss of our privilege or the loss of our way of life, it's funny because one of the things that I've been doing is ordering books. I've got a lot of downtime, and I'm ordering books. And one of them I got was the Tattooist of Auschwitz.
Holy fuck.
Right? It had.
We're keeping it light today.
Well, and that's just it.
Jesus
People are
Christ.
talking about, oh my God, I got a pandemic and I'm sitting at home and my way of life has been interrupted.
Yeah.
These guys were like put on cattle cars and taken to a camp and watching their buddies get
Yeah,
shot.
you want to talk way of life interrupted. Yeah.
And then after they get out, which this guy, he put his time in, it was about a guy named Lael Sokolov, and the book's written by Heather Morris. He got a job doing the tattoos on people that got off the trains for registering their numbers and tattooing them on their arms. And he was worried about being considered a collaborator because he was getting a privileged job. Like he didn't have to do hard
you couldn't
labor.
be more visible,
Right.
We had 10,000 people all saw you doing this. They looked you right in the face while you tattooed them.
Well, yeah, exactly. And,
or
and-
however many I don't fucking know, but yeah.
And the religious element is you're defiling God's temple. You're
Oh,
like
for sure.
you're defiling
if you're Jewish,
these people.
right?
Yes,
That's their
and,
whole. You can't be buried in a Jewish cemetery if you have any ink.
and then when the war ends, these people go out and about, and they're trying to find their families in a war-torn land. They're trying to find people they met and reconnect without any infrastructure because it's all been bombed out. Like
Yeah.
you never know, the invading forces might just kidnap you and use you as a sex slave or whatever the case may be, or just like be atrocious to you as much as the people that put you in the camp. So it's what we consider an upset to our way of life is an incredibly soft variation on what
this
really
is my Armageddon. I gotta be
Yeah.
stuck at home. Yeah, right.
Exactly.
But again, it fucking to me, I'm like. That's fine then. You know what I mean? Like it is what it is. That was their shit and they fucking dealt with it and that's horrendous. And I mean, we shouldn't have to compare the two, but I mean, if it's still something that fucking tears your world apart, like we're all getting changed.
Well, there's stress,
But again, that always builds character,
Right,
Right?
yeah,
Who do
to
you
a
know
degree.
that's like funny or interesting that didn't have some fucked up shit? You know what I mean?
Dalai Lama.
Well, that guy did have some fucked up shit going on in his life.
Yeah,
And there
exactly.
a
I guess he
13-year-old
got
cousin in the
exiled.
mix there. Like,
He got exiled. Oh, really? Was there?
Oh man, yeah. There's been some shit about Dalai Lama. People
Ooh,
talking like,
really?
well, you know that he fucking wasn't just bathing with everybody. But come on.
Well, I guess if you're in
don't listen to me.
If you're in a homosocial environment, shit's going to happen. You don't have access to women, and you go through your puberty. You know, you might get attracted to the dink next to you. I guess. But the Dalai Lama.
That's a hot word.
Dink?
Yeah, people love dink.
Yeah, that thing's doing something
Give
for
me
me.
that
We're all
dink.
naked in the shower or the bath. I don't know about 13-year-old cousins, but like, you know, I'd like to think that the Dalai Lama
I don't know.
had a
It was
relatively
Dalai Lama or Jerry Lee
trauma-free
Lewis. I always
lifestyle.
get those two confused.
Which one?
They both had magic fingers. Dalai Lama or Jerry Lee Lewis.
Yeah.
What was it? No, that's what they had in common. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Fuck. This has been fun. Well, okay, well, that's what you've been into. I've been into like fucking playing video games and listening to wrestling podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
Saying I haven't watched any professional wrestling since I probably like 12 or 13. And
Neither have I.
was never like super into it, but like enjoyed it for a bit, hey?
And my 12 and 13 is probably about 10 years earlier than your 12. How old are you now?
What am I, 37? 38?
Yeah, I'm 46, right? So
fair
yeah,
enough,
a
yeah.
different generation.
Yeah.
The guys that I was really into back in the day were like Ricky the Steamboat Dragon and Junkyard Dog and Hacksaw Jim
Yeah.
Duggan and you know
Those
the
are like the
Iron
big 80s
Sheik
stars.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those
yeah,
are the
yeah.
guys. And once those guys kind of started aging out and the
Yeah.
new guys came in, it was still WWF when I stopped watching professional.
Yeah, and see, and I started pretty much just it was WWF, and then it wasn't.
transitioned
It
to
was pretty
Wii.
much when I started, and everything started getting more neon. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like there was
yeah.
like the Macho Man was doing exactly the Generation X and all that. That's when I started fading out of it. You know, and I know lots of people. That's when they really got into
Mm-hmm.
it. But it was just making me nostalgic and like how I'm like, well, fuck, I should try. And then I started watching like some modern day professional wrestling, and I was like, holy fuck, this is a horrendous nightmare that I cannot sit through.
Really? It's that
it's
bad?
so bad, dude. It's like it's like none of the core of what made wrestling interesting is there anymore. It's like they leaned into the idea of it. Well, it's all a work. It's all fake.
It's soap opera now?
So then we'll just make it as fake. The guys are teleporting. You know what I mean? Like you can't believe somebody, a human being, for a second teleported from one side of the stadium to the other, right? I can believe somebody picked them up over their head and slammed them, even if they worked with them and they were willing. I can still think
They're doing
fuck,
like
that guy
David
could-
Blaine shit?
Oh shit, dude! It's a whole nother level.
levitating.
Telling the dude, one dude's wrestling an invisible man. There's another guy wrestling a fucking blow up doll. You know, like it's like and
Holy
having
shit, maybe I
having
should
like
get back
having
into
like
this.
these tiny like little tiny female wrestlers like beat these like 270-pound monsters with like no technique, nothing remotely near fucking believable. And you're
With
like,
skimpy outfits.
yeah, man, and like it's got to do a song and dance routine first, and everybody's got to stop and do a pose at the entryway. So you got like it's really weird, and I'm assuming a bunch of it's
theater.
from like it is. It's very theater. I think some of it kind of comes a little bit from like because like I think the guys doing it are like really Japanese fighting background, so there's a lot of that involved in it because there's a lot of that kind of just culture kind of tying into it. So it's a weird mishmash of shit that doesn't seem like a real fight in any fucking way whatsoever. Because even the old stuff, like even once you knew it was a work, you were still like, yeah, but how's he going to do it though? You know, and you didn't know necessarily who won. You know, you're not putting money on it, but you're like, well, he might get out of it, or you know, and it always didn't.
Get that leg on the rope.
It didn't always follow the script too. Sometimes shit, the Montreal screw job, you know, like that.
Yeah.
There's shit that just doesn't go how it's supposed. So
Guys
it made
that
it
don't wanna play the game.
You believed, and I mean, I believe these fucking guys get hurt at any time trying to do these choreographed flips off the rope and shit, which is very exciting and entertaining on like a gymnastics level. But you can't believe that that's really happening in a match, and especially the way they sell it. And but anyways, it's been getting me more excited about kind of like, well, fuck, how do I pay attention to this? And then Dave Ma, who we had on here previously, big fucking pro wrestling fan, he just did an article, and I wish I could remember the fucking website it was for, but it was kind of like the pyramid of wrestling. So like, you know, all your greats on the top and then working your way down, and Dave's particular spin on his opinion on about 78 different fucking pro wrestlers
about
from the
right.
last like 40 or 50 years or whatever the fuck it is. And yeah, it just got me thinking about how like I feel like there's a little space in like everybody's heart for a little bit of pro wrestling. Like even if somebody's like, you know what, I've never watched it, but like, yeah, I've seen fucking Hulk Hogan tear his shirt off. You know what I mean? I get it.
See, yeah, and all of that stuff, like, I grew up on that, like, at an early age. That was entertainment. My grandmother used to watch pro wrestling Saturday morning and get so emotionally invested in it. When somebody got injured, she would call our house crying because
nuts,
Hacksaw
man.
Jim Duggan might have got his leg broken
Because
today.
it was real to them.
to them,
right?
yeah.
And
well,
even if you told them, well, we know who's going to win. Well, that doesn't matter. But look, he still threw him off the fucking stage.
yeah, or
he still
through
slammed him into the ground.
the cage matches and, like, landing
Yeah,
on
man.
tacks and all of that
Yeah.
stuff. I just watched the fight scene from They Live with Roddy Piper and the other guy there, and man, the
maniac.
choreography,
I love it.
the
Yeah.
choreography, the fight choreography, it was insane. Like those guys knew how to fight. It wasn't an act. Like I remember,
And what they did was make it look like they knew, right?
well, I bet those guys could throw down if they
But
needed
no,
to.
totally. But like real fighting looks fucked on camera.
Yeah,
you know,
that's a
like
good
it's all
point.
it's small movements. It doesn't sell right. Those guys knew how to do that for a stadium, make it look really real. 60 rows up.
Yeah,
without
that's a good
hurting the
point.
other guy too.
Although you watch the interviews with some of those dudes, and
Yeah.
they're like, after those shows, when we're back at the hotel and so gets too many drinks in him, he's a lunatic, and you need to,
All of 'em.
well, they're all juiced to the
There's
max. They're
some
working
good
out.
ones.
They're like,
Well, and these guys were like fucking your gypsy strongmen types. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Y'all had to be kind of fucking crazy. You had to be a legitimate tough guy.
and there were teams of them
Yeah,
cruising
for
around,
sure.
doing all the blow, doing all the booze, trying to pick up everybody in the
that's
bar.
a very famous story about Hacksaw Jim Duggan and the Iron Sheik. Oh, yeah. That this is like the height of their fucking feud, hey? And they're traveling cross country and they get pulled over. And Dugan's been smoking as much dope as a Hacksaw Jim Duggan can smoke. And the Iron Sheik has got like a fucking whole head right full of cocaine. So
From
picture
Saudi
that.
Arabia full
Yeah,
of blow.
fucking rights,
Yeah,
man.
that's funny.
And yeah, and they get pulled over together. And the big stink about that was that they were partying
were
together.
supposed to be
Because this
enemies,
was the
yeah.
height of their heat where they fucking hated each other. And he's the ultimate anti-American. He's the Iron Sheik. And Hacksaw Jim Duggan swinging a goddamn 2x4.
Yeah, he's the redneck
That's
good
it.
old boy.
You don't get more. Yeah, and they're out there just partying together, fucking ripping down the back roads of America.
But like, you know, it's funny. Like, I learned a rear naked choke from doing the sleeper hold.
Sure.
I've known that since I was a kid.
It's all based in reality.
Yeah,
right?
like what do they say? The Hart brothers, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and who's the other one? Bret
Hitman,
Hart.
Yeah.
Their dad.
That's so funny that you knew Jim Neidhart. It was the first one you came to with
Yeah,
Bret
the
Hart's
beard
one of the
and
most famous fucking wrestlers of all time.
Bret Hart.
And like the Anvil, like people would be like, "Who?"
Right?
That's amazing though. I know
But
what you're
their
talking about.
dad was
Yeah.
an old school catch
Yeah.
wrestler, which these
Was
guys
Stu
would,
Hart.
yeah, okay, so they would go in a ring. Who wants to take me? Let's wrestle. Anybody
Yeah.
from the audience can come on in, and I'm gonna tap you out. And those guys knew dirty shit
Sure, man.
to fucking knock guys out of the ring like that. Like, oh, I'm gonna get your arm, and you can't do anything like that. And apparently, those kids, when they were kids, those wrestlers, when they were children, their dad would bring like the Calgary Stampede guys to the house, and they'd be upstairs listening to men screaming in the basement as their dad
The
ran
dungeon.
them through.
That's what they called it. I actually read Bret Hart's book. Believe it
really?
or not. This is fucking. Just about 20 years ago, I guess. One of the books he wrote. I don't even remember which one it was, but that's one of the things that stuck with me was him talking about growing up around, again, Stampede Wrestling. That was his family's fucking thing. They tour around all over Western Canada and go and fight fucking whoever they brought with them, and sometimes people that were locals, you know,
Yeah,
like
just
whatever.
hop in the ring and like
and like have to like, yeah, we're putting on a show, but sometimes motherfuckers didn't want to look weak. They want to look tough when they're supposed to look weak, and all of a sudden you got to really whoop somebody's ass.
Yeah, like those heel hooks and stuff like that come into play, like those dirty. Well, Dave Moss specializes in a lot of that little like catch wrestling stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes from I need to shut this guy down.
Yep.
You know, or he's come out of the audience and boom, boom, boom. Every once in a while, in those old ones, you'll catch somebody who figures that he just jumps the barrier and he's going to get in the guy's face, and they're like, okay, you're out.
There is one I just watched, and this is gonna piss me off because I can't remember the names of anybody involved, but it's very famous. If you're ever on YouTube and you're looking for like wrestling riots, it's I think it was even in black and white, and I can't remember the name of the fucking guy, but his move was like the death punch, like the heart punch, and he had the baby face of whoever they were fighting down in the fucking ring, and he was heart punching this guy, and the crowd screaming, "No, you're gonna fucking kill him!" You know, like they're just losing their minds, and he's heart punching this guy, and he hits him again, and it's like 6, 7
edge
fucking
chops.
times. Well, then the fucking garbage starts flying into the fucking ring, and chairs flying into the ring, and everybody's going, okay, everybody calm down, and they start, the one guy who was on like the heel team, he jumps out of the fucking ring and runs through the crowd, and people are swinging at him and trying to chase him, and he's running trying to get to the back of the fucking stadium, and this is like in the would it be in the 70s or 60s, like long enough ago,
yeah.
this is like a local fucking thing, not a big time TV fucking thing, right? And then the guy who was like the main heel, like the Iron Sheik kind of character, I can't remember what his fucking name was, but he's trying to get out of the fucking ring, and they said like this shit would happen back in the day, but then what would happen is if the crowd was really losing their mind, the heels would start to take a turn where they'd start letting the baby faces beat them up and go, okay, well no, they're getting me, they're getting me, guys, look, I'm not winning anymore, put the fucking chairs down, you know. But they never got an
had it
opportunity
worked
to do
out.
this because the garbage started being thrown in, and they kind of just had to pan the match real quick. So the anyways, the end shot of this is this guy gets out of the ring and he's running through the crowd and he's running over people and he's trying to go, and somebody just fucking clobbers him with a chair on the way out, and that's the end of the video. That's like all that exists from what I know. You don't even know how it really all worked out, but yeah, it's pretty fucking. And I mean, again, that was the stories and the mythology that was traveling with wrestling when people started seeing it on TV, going, and people go, oh well, it's fake, and you're like, yeah, but I don't know, man. Did you hear about Louisville that time when they had to fight their fucking way out of the whole bar, and then because all these great backstories, and there's just that's absolutely missing from modern wrestling because
it's theater.
Well, and picture who's doing it. It's people who are in their 20s and 30s now. Well, they didn't grow up being tough guys, drinking fucking beer, snorting coke, slapping people at the bar.
They've grown up with the internet.
They've grown up in a whole different world, and then that translates into this. And I mean, like, you couldn't find better athletes and more skilled like performers for the wrestling kind of thing of that kind of shit. But as far as cutting a promo or actually being believable that they could beat the shit out of somebody, it's like, no, because people who have been actually fucking arrested know how to fucking act and talk tough, like
old wrestling footage would be canceled as fuck now. Like, you try and get any of those Rowdy Piper promos, like when who is the Hawaiian guy, Coconut
Crush?
No,
Because he was awesome.
He smashed. It might have been Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, where he smashes a coconut over his head, being racist about him being Hawaii. I like a coconut, bam! And like, I got to talk to Dave and see if he can pull out some of those old promos.
And that was shit that like the McMahon's, if it was cheesy and cliche
and controversial,
chief throw maker or whatever the fuck is, if it was that kind of shit,
racist,
send them in, whatever, because they wanted those big goofy weird characters that
Junkyard
like it's
Dog.
easy to hate. It's obvious. You can hate it because it's a caricature, or you can hate it because you're kind of a dummy and you would you'd hate the Junkyard Dog.
Well, Trump.
He's in the WWE Hall of Fame for shaving Vince McMahon's head.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
See, and that's just the people that really are the WWE people are the ones that voted for Trump, because he could play that same game.
And I feel like I'm starting to become like a WWE person now, where I'm starting to like get some love for it and kind of like appreciate the nuance of it when it's done right.
As a theater, as a performance, as a soap opera, it's entertaining.
Can you imagine just being somewhere and like what you think is a real fight fucking breaks out and everybody sells it so convincingly that you're like genuinely concerned, like, fuck, did somebody else just jump in? You know what I mean? Can you imagine having that back in pro wrestling now, where people really thought it was something dangerous? I feel it'd be similar to like if anybody who grew up in a small town in like the 70s or 80s playing fucking hockey.
Oh yeah.
What going to see a hockey game used to be like. Like I couldn't tell you the stories I've heard of the fucking the whole stand clearing brawls up in fucking all these little podunk towns up in the Northeast, where it's just that's what was fucking done, right?
Oh, Graham, my brother, his team went out to, I think it was like Rosetown or somewhere else, and the police had to come to get escort the parents and to escort the team out, because
guys my age, even I remember playing where like they'd get chased out of town, people fucking hitting with sticks and rocks their vehicle.
I'm glad that's a great sport to really get into. Right?
But think about it. Imagine like that atmosphere, like how fun it is to be part of that, where you're going to something where you're like, okay, we're going to watch this game, but you never know what the fuck's going to happen. Last time I was here, they started the building on fire, so let's fucking see what goes down. And again, I think that's kind of how pro wrestling used to be.
It reminds me of Slapshot, the movie.
Fucking right.
What are we getting into here, boys?
I mean, that movie's an exaggeration to some degree. There is still every aspect of that pretty much existed somewhere, except for maybe the striptease at the end. I don't know if I've ever seen that, but like.
Well, one of my clients is a pretty honcho personal trainer here in Saskatoon. He's an old client. His name's Kelly Rio, and he was scouted or recruited. I don't know. He was going to play Oglethorpe, Ogie Oglethorpe, in a short movie that they were going to put out. I don't know if it ever got put out, but you could find it on YouTube if you look up like Oglethorpe movie. And this guy was like a lunatic thug in the hockey community. It's like, oh my God, Oglethorpe's getting out of jail and he's going to make it to the game.
He's not playing.
Yeah. Putting on the foil and all of that stuff, right? Like, it's a culture of violence. And I think about this a lot, where I don't know, being 46 years old, engaging with a lot of millennial kind of people in the fetish community, there's a lot of conversation about what is toxicity in masculinity.
Right.
And I think about this, like, I was raised with WWF, moving on to the action movies like Red Dawn, Terminator, Predator, Rambos, all of those, like ultra masculine. This is what masculinity looks like. This is how masculinity acts. And then you either fit in or you are femme, and being femme is one of the worst things you could be in the 80s. You know, you don't want to be the victim. And well, even movies that aren't even ultra masculine, like Eddie Murphy movies, 48 Hours, Beverly Hills Cop. You can see when they just absolutely, oh, you're the artist, that kind of thing. And I'm like, or Surge
everybody's
in
a
Beverly Hills
caricature.
Cop. Yeah. And so we grew
Serge.
up. Yeah.
Surge?
Savage. So we grew up with these caricatures being, this is reality, because the information that was being programmed to us was literal programming. We joke around about my kid. My kid, oh, she's got a babysitter, she's got her iPad, or she's got her phone, But our parents had a babysitter, and it was a television with your wrestling, your Saturday morning cartoons, Super Channel, the movies on these things, and that was our cultural indoctrination. What was I talking to? My partner never even heard of Three's Company. Jack Tripper?
Sure.
Okay, Jack Tripper was a guy who had to pretend he was gay so his landlord would let him live. This is from the sitcom Three's Company back in the day. So his landlord would let him live with 2 female roommates who he was always sexually harassing and grabbing and trying to grope. And when he wasn't groping on his 2 roommates, he was bringing more and more women home. And whenever his landlords came in, he had to be the most flamboyant gay guy that he could be in order to be allowed to live in the apartment with 2 single females. That's some pretty fucked up standards.
That's a weird pitch.
That was almost like,
That's a weird pitch.
few nights a week we're watching Three's Company at supper time. Like, that's so funny, queer people.
Yeah.
And like, and now by our standards today, things have evolved so much and culture's evolved so much. A lot of us are still trying to undo that. Like, literally, that stuff wounded our masculinity, right? Or that's the wounded masculine, where you solve problems with violence, where you can't be femme. And so, I don't know. What was it? Disney Plus. I got Disney Plus for a little while, and I thought it was shit. And I'm like, fuck this. I don't want to watch Disney Plus because these are all Disney movies. It was okay for my daughter. I like some of the cartoons. They're cool, but I've seen a lot. And then I went to cancel it, and right after I canceled it, I noticed that my settings were for 14 and under. And I'm like, oh, there's an 18 and older? And so I clicked that, and all of a sudden, all of the Predators, all of the Aliens, all of these really cool movies popped up. I'm like slapping myself. Oh, apparently, also, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is on there.
Yes, it is.
So I'm thinking I might sign up back for it because I love that stuff.
Yeah.
But I watched... me and B started watching Predator, the first one. I wanted to introduce her to some of my classic stuff that I grew up on, and she just looked at me like almost horrified. She's like, "You watched this as a child?" And it's like wholesale slaughter. Like, we're just killing a village because they're the enemy.
Almost couldn't find a more terrifying movie monster. Also, like, the Predator's fucking awesome. It's one of the best.
It's a combination of like action, horror, slaughterama, and all of those movies, like Predator, Punisher, Rambo. What was the one that a Schwarzenegger movie, and he had the urban camo across Commando, where he's killing people with saw blades, and it's like
fucking right.
Or American
Let off
Ninja
some
movies.
steam.
Yeah. So all of that stuff, like that was a generation of this is what manhood is. This is how we handle problems.
That's what's entertaining. Yeah, blow shit up.
Well, so now we have a culture of people shooting each other to solve their problems, and we wonder why. Why did it happen? Where did we go wrong?
Truth.
Solve problems.
Goddamn Braddock.
Throw them out the ring. Looks like you've been pushing paper too much with the CIA.
Yeah, flexing out. It's so goddamn good. Carl fucking Weathers, man. No, man, I've been into that shit. Like I said, okay, so like I found that out because I've been trying for a while to try and find the Predator and Alien movies in a place where I could watch them because I found a website that showed me what the chronology of them are if it's all the same universe and how it plays out.
Well,
and how
apparently it
overlaps.
is because they have Alien versus Predator.
Well, and that was like a weird crossover. I guess that Ridley Scott really didn't want to do because he didn't want to tie the 2 worlds together. But it doesn't. If you do it, it doesn't really fuck one or the other up. It still kind of makes sense. And what's really interesting is then Prometheus is kind of the crossover for those. It's like the Predator movies kind of happen in our timeline. And
what about the Alien versus Predator? Were those before or after?
Oh, sorry, you're right. That happens in our timeline also.
Yeah.
So it's like Predator 2, Alien versus Predator, Alien versus Predator Requiem, what's after that? It's
the Aliens?
The Predator,
then
Predators, which is the
so
one.
all the Predator ones predate or are earlier chronologically than the Aliens?
Than the Alien movies, because those take place in the future, right? Ripley's in a spaceship in the future, whereas the original Predator movie takes place in 1987, and then it builds on from there, and then Blade Runner ties into them as well.
See, that's the connection I didn't get. I wasn't sure.
It's the same world as Alien apparently, and that's a direct. That's absolutely fucking verified.
That's been established
as canon for that world, right? And so then the replicants and the androids you have have in Prometheus
That
and
makes sense.
Alien.
Yeah, yeah.
You kind of see the similarities, right?
Yeah.
And then so then Prometheus is the kind of the transition where it goes from there had already been these predator encounters on Earth. They don't talk about it at all in that, but it's just after that anyways, but before when Alien happens, and it shows kind of how the xenomorphs got spread throughout the universe, but it also shows that they've been here before, that the engineers that you find in Prometheus, they find the one dead, that's what created life on our planet and other planets, and that the Christianity story of creation is the story of creation from Prometheus, and they give little nods to it during the movie where she's like fingering her cross and stuff, like trying to show you like, hey, if you want to know the story, it's what Christianity is. And actually in Prometheus, so what happens is in that movie, because I just think this is a great transition of kind of showing what these timelines are. So 2,000 years ago, they were supposed to send one of these fucking ships to Earth to wipe us out that has this black goo in it, which is the shit that creates aliens, creates the xenomorphs, this black shit, right? And there's a bigger story behind
So
that.
it's like a virus.
Exactly. It's like a virus they're going to send to Earth, and they've been perfecting this and figuring out how to do it. So on these planets where they create life, if it start going astray and not becoming not violent, then they snub it out. And Predators, apparently, if it's canon, is something that they created as well, but they did a different path, and they've worked on becoming just warriors. They never fucking worried about.
Oh, the Predators were created as like a cleansing kind of virus.
Well,
Because like there's that one Alien versus Predator, and I really liked it because they had the big pyramids, and these were hunting grounds where the Predators' testing ground or rite of passage.
That's exactly
was
what it
you
is.
had to go
So
in.
that's
and
what the story is with those. So with Predators, they've developed a hierarchy of these warriors where depending on how many xenomorph aliens you've killed and how many hives you've cleaned out and how many queens you've killed, you go up the ranks being a fucking predator.
like
right?
a military kind of
Exactly,
like system,
and they're
like-
very militant. They're all about finding the ultimate predator and becoming it. That's why they're constantly genetically manipulating themselves, trying to take genetic material from the spinal columns. That's why they do the spine fucking tear out from the
that's very
first movie.
interesting.
Is they're taking the genetic material. That's why they were hunting down Arnold Schwarzenegger. They were all lured into the jungle because they wanted this elite team of mercenaries to see what kind of genetic material they could take from them after they hunted them, because that's also part of their rites of passage, is always fucking hunting everything, right?
Well, that's really fucking cool. And where did you learn it? And I want to read it.
Yeah, man. So it's got this really kind of deep overlap that you see, and even like the storyline wise, like in Alien versus Predator, the old guy who is the android in the original Alien movie from 1979, Bishop. The guy, that guy. So his human, who Bishop
that was
Whalen,
based off of.
that runs the company that basically goes through this whole storyline, right? He gets killed in Alien versus Predator, and then in Prometheus, there's a Whalen. But it's not this same guy, and it's the canon is that that's his son that carried on his work, and then that keeps building on it, and he kept building these replicants, which eventually ends up making him look like his father. Also, that's why you have one in Alien that looks like him.
That's quite a well organized universe.
It fucking ties together, and it's so fucking interesting, right? So yeah, it's been really great, kind of going through those storylines and then watching the movies in the order of that to see like, okay, so 300 years ago that happened. Now this is how far along they've got since then.
That's really
and
neat.
you can kind of see how it fucking goes. But yeah, so it ties again into the story of Christianity in the way that they were gonna 2,000 years ago they were gonna send a ship to wipe us out because they said they took and initiated one of ours into the ways of the engineers, is kind of how they put it. So basically they showed someone the secret of fucking what the engineers know and what the universe and how it works, and then sent them back to Earth to impart this fucking knowledge, and then we crucified them. So then they're like, look, we sent you an envoy,
Yeah.
and you guys pinned him to a bunch of boards. Okay, you don't get to exist anymore. You're too fucking violent. This is when you needed to change course for us to be able to work with you. Because if you get out of here and you keep getting more technologically advanced, you're going to become the predators. You're going to be this fucking warring piece of shit that goes planet to planet, wiping stuff out or killing or whatever you want to do. So that was the plan, was to do it. But as they were getting this thing prepared, some of it gets out, kills these other engineers, and the one gets infected, and that's why he puts himself into a cryo sleep. But it's also why all these fucking things are on like these ancient star maps. That's because that's how they find it. They find it in a cave, this ancient star map, and they plot it and go, well, we got to go here. This is their home planet. And it's like,
Where did you see? What did you look up to see this stuff? Or?
so a lot of it is in these movies is just like really fucking knowing what to look for, and then some of it was going on YouTube and finding videos of people that had kind of looked into the canon deeper and then give their examples of how it ties together. So it doesn't seem hokey and made up. It's like, well, no, this lines up with this, that lines up with that. This is kind of like even the transition of the one Whale into the other as being the father and the son. It's never really it's never explicit,
explained, but if you follow the
it makes
continuity
sense. It
of
does
the
make
universe,
sense. Why
yeah,
wouldn't Why wouldn't he have a clause that leaves something to his son that he takes over his company once he's gone if he's a big time businessman, right? Like,
I always think it's interesting following fan fiction or fan, like universe.
pulling everything together, because a lot of it's consciously left out. It's like a big chunk of the explanation of why these engineers were going to wipe us out, and even why they created us, because it was like part of their evolution. Like, they've evolved to a point where they don't recreate sexually. They have to recreate by letting themselves basically
destroyed
seed planets,
yeah.
and then let that genetic material bind with whatever's there to create the life. And the idea was them to try and create something, again, like all gods, as close to them as they possibly could. So they kept trying to do it in places where it would work, and it didn't always work everywhere. And they even showed the one planet being wiped out in Alien Covenant, and you think, when they show the glimpses, that maybe they are the engineers, because they look a lot like them. But when you really look closely, like their brows are quite sloped, and their features are a little off, and they don't look just like them. They look as much like them as we do.
Oh, interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like another variation, and this is another one that we got to wipe this one out. It didn't develop right.
That's an interesting mythology.
It's a trip, man. So it's
Yeah.
really, I've been really fucking enjoying getting into it, because it's all there. The movies are fucking great.
You know what's funny? If they can create a religion of the Jedi, let's get
Fuck
behind
yeah.
Predator
Yeah,
religion, right?
I'm down to clown.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
That'd be hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, this is our faith.
Yeah.
It's got a
Yeah.
full
So I'm
mythology.
glad we got
built
into that
around
for a
it.
bit.
Oh man.
Yeah, no, it's been really fucking entertaining learning more about that. So that's how I've been filling my time. Been on a real Predator kick as of late.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Oh, Jesus, never mind. Yeah. Hey. Well,
I love it. Jesus, never mind.
Oh, well, no, like you think about the warrior culture and the stoicism and like the aggression and like these are masculine traits, and I was gonna drag it back to that wounded masculine. Like,
Yeah.
watched a documentary with my partner, at least a portion of it. She drags out Gaia documentaries once in a while, and this one they were talking about the wounded masculine, where see, it depends on the angle that you're approaching, because like a lot of old traditions, spiritual traditions, have divine masculine and divine feminine qualities. It's yin and yang. It's left and right. It's the right hand path, left hand path, and it depends on where you're at. Because I've also read a lot of gender activists that say, well, that's so oppressive because binary gender is oppressive and it's a social construct. But then there's also the element that like right-brained behaviors are different than left-brain behaviors. You've got like stoicism, rational logic, aggressive tendencies versus emotion and mercy and like I guess nurturing tendencies. And I guess those different balances would be the divine masculine being nurturing and emotional and healing, and divine feminine being nurturing, emotional, and healing, and divine masculine being aggressive and assertive and stoic, right? More rational, logical as opposed to emotional. And this documentary, this woman was talking about that erasure of these differences is detriment to our culture. We need to recognize that they are equal, that they're different, but they're equal.
Know when those things are needed.
Yes.
Be able to have both those inside of you in a balance. Instead of trying to be the extreme of one or the other,
Yes.
have both in
or
you.
being a caricature of it. Like
Yes, yeah.
women
What
could
do you-
use
yeah.
a little more stoicism
Yeah.
and men could use a little more sensitivity and
Yeah.
try and balance out the feminine as opposed to the wounded masculine or the wounded feminine.
And try and do it honestly too, because I can just picture some guys being like, well, can you get in touch with like more of your feminine aspects, being like, oh, I guess I'll put on a fucking dress. And
You're
it's
not
like,
gonna stick your
well,
dick in my ass.
Can you be nurturing in some way? Hey, can you grow something? Can you be understanding? Can you be supportive emotionally? Like,
Yeah.
that's, to me, those are what are traditionally more feminine
Yes,
traits.
and that's balancing that in.
Yeah, exactly. That's just identifying it. That's just identifying what they are. That's not saying that if you aren't that, you aren't that, right? If you aren't nurturing and caring and thoughtful, well, then you're not feminine. And it's like, well, no, you can absolutely be feminine and not necessarily being a terribly nurturing, thoughtful, caring person in other ways that a person can be feminine. But those are definitely traits that lean towards that.
Can you work on maybe not being emotionally castrated?
Yeah.
Can we
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
the
be
one-
it all. Fucking, like, and again, this is my whole thing about this is like a tough guy can be all those things. A tough man can be sensitive and small and can be hurt and can do that because you're tough and strong.
Well, what
and
is
you
tough?
can deal with
What
that.
is the definition
Exactly.
of tough? Like,
Exactly.
I've always said tough is endurance. Tough is
Sure.
patience
Last
through
it out.
hardship. Yeah,
Yeah.
last it out, grind it out, take a licking. as opposed to being
Yeah.
able to give one.
Yeah.
And that's to me tough, as opposed to the idea of you're a bully and you're imposing your will on others whether they like it or not. That's not tough. That's just imperialism.
Tough as carrying somebody else's fucking load.
Yeah, if somebody can't
You know
walk,
what I
you
mean?
pick them up and you carry them.
That's-
Firefighters.
That's much tougher.
Versus the military, right? So it's funny. This woman, she talked about tribal cultures previous to the Christian idea of what masculinity was. Tribal cultures recognized that the men were the hunters, they were the builders, they were the aggressive element, and the woman's job traditionally was the healer, the keeper of the hearth and home, and the limiting factor of saying you've hunted enough. We have enough animals right now. You don't need to go kill. We've done enough war. We've protected our grounds. You don't need to kill anymore, to dial back that aggressive tendency. Now, if you apply that to our own psychology and our own behaviors, we need to do that to ourselves, to recognize when we've acted appropriately aggressively enough and say this
Exactly.
is where we draw the line, and that's all we need to do.
That's been my journey as an adult, is to try to figure out, when to appropriately use that energy. Because instead of being ashamed of it, or I can't believe that's how I blow up about that, or that's how I react to this, or whatever, which sucks. And you mean, you should be, if it's inappropriate, you should be slightly ashamed of it, but not get down on it, fucking deal with it and move forward. But then when you can use that energy in the place it's supposed to be used and in a positive way, fucking bask in the glory of being an animal. Bask in the glory of
there's a
being
time and place
that
for
raw,
that.
visceral fucking thing, wherever that is, right?
See,
It's a journey to try and figure out where the fuck that is sometimes.
Now, the idea with the warrior archetype is like there's this idea that and it's the idea coming from the wounded masculine, right? That you should bug out at the drop of a hat, right? Like any little slight needs to be met with violence, right? And that's a wounded attitude.
That's a wounded animal.
Yes, it is.
Right? That's how they react.
Yes.
Snap, big, snare.
You're a threat,
Even
I'm
if I
attacking
can't
you.
possibly fucking beat you, I want you to see all my teeth and claws and think for a second, well, fuck, this badger might get me.
You take a look at any rescue dog that's been on the street or neglected or been abused, and it's just been left in, let's say a junkyard. And the people that are going to rescue it are trying to rescue it. Everything's a threat, and it's going to attack anybody.
Everything's a trap.
And then once they realize that they can trust again, and they have that, but they recognize they're in a safe place. And I think, unfortunately,
And again, that happens with female dogs.
Yes.
Hey, and that's a very masculine energy of
Yeah.
attack. Again, these are not gender
Yes,
and
exactly.
genital traits, right? Because I think even like with the warrior thing, like we were talking about, like I'm sure anecdotally throughout tribes there was female warriors
100%.
that were like,
There were.
no, I'm fucking more savage than him.
Yeah.
You want to send Bill? You want to send skinny noodle arm fucking Bill? I whip Bill's ass every fucking day. I'm killing mastodons. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
yes.
There was definitely those ladies, right? And so that's again, the masculine and feminine doesn't have to be genital related. It's fucking
No, it's
energy.
archetypal.
fucking-
It's archetypal
man,
principles.
It's emotions.
well, and the idea in most systems is when you achieve the balance, you become hermaphroditic. You transcend the binary, and you've incorporated the divine unity of these things.
And again,
And
it doesn't have to mean a physical because again, people start getting worried. Wait a minute, I got to become a hermaphrodite. And it's like emotionally, yes. Spiritually, yes.
Yes, well-
physically, you can leave everything the way the fuck it is.
well, I
if
think
you
that's
want.
a trap in most people's psychology is they accept everything as being literal and not metaphorical. They
fucking right.
They hear these myths of like Odin, Loki, Jesus, whatever it is, and they think them as literal things. They look at the Hindu iconography and they think that the Hindus believe that up in the sky there's a 6-armed dude who's got all these little tools. No, it's all a metaphor. It's all just principle ideas. And when we talk about divine feminine and divine masculine, we're talking about psychological principles being explained 3,000 years ago. We're not they didn't have modern psychology. As a matter of fact, most of the modern psychoanalysis and psychological theory comes from people that studied old religion. And they took these principles of old religion and said, wow, that reminds me of the mythology of Hera or Prometheus stealing fire from the gods and giving, all of these things were messages. They were
Allegory.
principles,
It's
allegory,
there to teach you
metaphor.
a story, right? It's a story to teach you a story.
And guys like, yeah, right, exactly. And for the problem is when you replace the story for a literal interpretation. I think that's a problem with people with Islam, with the Bible, with Judaism.
And people don't do that with many of it. Like nobody really thinks that if you've got wax wings, you get too close to the sun, you're going to melt Icarus style. But when you get Icarus style, it's whatever it is you're doing. You got too close and did
You got too close to the sun.
Not
too close to-
literally. You didn't get literally too close to the sun.
Well, anybody who cracks up or drowns in the water that the mystics swim in that's the experience. You flew too close to the sun, man. You're not allowed to go up there. You're not allowed to contemplate shit that's too far beyond your pay grade. You will burn up and come back down, you know, and you're going to hit or what is the other one? I really like the myth of Theseus seeking the golden fleece in the labyrinth, which is the golden fleece is his true self. And he has to go through a labyrinth of all of this stuff to find the golden fleece, but he encounters the Minotaur, which is his dark shadow side. And you will have to encounter that Minotaur in order to seek that true self. And the old psychoanalysis, like guys like Jung and Freud and all the old stuff from like the early 1900s, late 1800s, they recognized that it was allegory and mythology. But nowadays, they're like, take a pill. There you go. Take a pill. Make the symptom go away.
Yeah, don't face your fucking Minotaur and,
Yeah.
and fuck with it in the fucking field. Like
They don't do
take a
dream
pill.
analysis anymore.
No.
They don't do therapy anymore. They just say, take a pill, make the symptom go away. And I see that so much. And
Well, and I when we start talking about this kind of stuff too, people realize that it's all individual Minotaurs. It's
Yeah,
not
it
it's
is.
not a literal one. Once
It's not
again,
the
but
universal-
It's
no,
something
God
somewhere
forbid.
that's the thing that you have to fucking deal with.
God
And
forbid, can you imagine the universal Minotaur? the big
I'd
monster.
ride that motherfucker.
Holy
Yeah.
fuck. It's
Tame
going to
it.
ride you whether
Oh,
you like
shit.
it or not.
All right.
So one of the other books I read during my downtime, or I'm halfway through, I don't know, I'm halfway through. It's How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole LaPera. It's she's a holistic psychologist. She kind of invented it. And it's recognizing your patterns, healing from your past, and creating yourself. And it's literally how to do the work. She's a big believer that modern psychology has robbed our ability to heal ourselves. And that we need to do more meditation, do our own work. Her whole thing is self-healers. Take a look at what she's on Instagram as the holistic psychologist. You can find her on Instagram. I think she got like 2 million followers. But I picked up this book and it's really cool because she gives you, write down, start a journal, write down a list.
You know what was funny was as soon as you started talking about this, I was in my head, I'm like, I bet you one of the first things he says is start writing shit down.
Yep.
And that's great fucking advice for anybody who's dealing with anything.
She gives you a list. So this is what I am expected to do. This is what I expect myself to do. This is what I think other people expect me to do. And this is the person it makes me.
That's a good one to work on.
Yeah, she
because
gives
once you
you-
actually write it down, you write down really, well, what do I think people expect of me? It changes it. Because
Yeah.
like when you write it down first, you go, well, is that really what I think people expect of me? And you have to analyze it, and it's that's a big one I think that would really change. Because we may think we know who we are or we know who other people are, but then when you're like, well, who do you think they think you are? And you're like, oh.
Yeah, what am I expected to do for other people? What am I expected to do for myself? How much do I put myself on the back burner for other people? So there's a whole bunch of exercises that she puts forward, and then she gives you like breathing exercises to decompress and to de-anxiety. Well, it's meditation by any other word.
Well, and that stuff like literally oxygenates your blood, so you do get physically better from breathing exercises.
So
let
her-
alone the mental shit.
Her whole idea is to get people doing their self-healing, because I've been saying we have that trauma treatment would be one of the biggest things that we could do for our society. If we could get people to treat their own trauma, they wouldn't be addicted to shit. They wouldn't be like damaged. They wouldn't be out in the street being addicted, committing crime, doing all that stuff. But nobody can afford therapy. How can we do this? We need these old processes, because that's these old processes of self-healing that used to be part of a communal tribe, right?
Well, you know, even just picturing a bunch of dads getting together and having beers in a fucking alley and bullshit. You know, like that's a working, you know, every once in a while working shit out kind of fucking
If
thing.
that's happening.
No, for sure, but because that's not happening now.
I can
right?
see a lot
But
of
I
the
can-
dads getting together and just celebrating their toxicity.
Oh, sure,
This
sure.
is Saskatchewan.
But I think like there's all these different types of like therapy, if you want to call it that, where you can get in a group and you can talk about your shit, but it doesn't have to be AA or like something else that's organized. I think that you got a bowling team, you got a slow pitch
Yep.
team, you got the bastards for me, you know?
Yep.
That was kind of my fucking thing, you know? Like once you get bullshitting with enough people for an hour, shit starts to kind of come out and then you're like,
yeah, if
you
you're
know
getting
what's my
authentic
fucking-
and vulnerable and that stuff starts.
Exactly. When you're in your whatever your fucking thing is, right?
Well, actually, it's funny about the bastards because externally it's a very toxic looking animal.
Oh, it's
right?
toxic. You don't want to taste it.
Right, you don't want to
Stay away.
smell it.
Yeah.
But you got
Distance.
loud motorcycles, you got grimy cars, you got tattooed guys that aren't necessarily the prim and proper. They're rough around the edges, tattered stuff. But when you actually meet these guys, they're some of the most supportive and compassionate individuals you've ever met. Or it has some of those people in there.
for the people that they choose to be compassionate to.
Yeah, right.
You can be
But
very-
I've never seen
Yeah.
real
No,
toxicity
you're right.
come out
You're
of that
right.
club, as opposed to somebody.
It's been many years.
From a yeah, it's been very many years since there was really toxic stuff happening.
That's one for you, me, and maybe 13 other people we can all laugh
Yeah,
about.
yeah. But that being said, well, you know, when those guys get together, it's definitely not the animal it looks like from the outside.
No.
And but it
But I
walks
think-
like
I
a duck
think-
and it quacks like a duck,
Yeah,
so it
right.
must be a duck.
Well, I think
right?
a lot of that is too. You know, like a lot of the you're fucking just together hanging out and bullshitting, you know, like that's going for coffee. That's what people have done, right? And actually somebody had made that comment to me. They said that's kind of what's going on with fucking a lot of the old people now, and why you see a lot of them still working as long as they possibly can, because people don't really go for coffee anymore. And like in small towns and shit, like that was their jam. If you were a fucking little old lady, well, the coffee roast circuit was coming to your house at least one day a week, and you had to go to somebody else's place. And
Or the one little cafe in town where everybody kind of goes and congregates. Yeah.
Yes. And there's not as much of that anymore. So people kind of crave that. Will stay in jobs a lot longer because they can still have coffee breaks, still bullshit with the people they've been working with, you know?
Especially if they're an essential worker.
Yeah. Well, for sure. Hey, but then
a lot of that's being
that gets to be
robbed from
part
our-
of that, like that broader, like societal loss of these little support groups that people had, where again, it was getting out, being social. And then the conversations would happen. You'd start talking about, well, my grandson's going through this or whatever the fuck it is.
Well, it's
And
interesting.
So you kind of, it's a weird things that kind of get lost when you lose something like
Well,
that.
we've said for a long time that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? And in small communities, unfortunately, the most rigid conservative voices were the ones that got the most accolades, you know? So it's weird that this whole COVID thing has been pushing a lot of people into isolation, away from their groups, but they're going online and they're aligning...
Getting QAnon'd.
Well, QAnon or communists, like these
yeah.
people, like they're being,
right.
they're getting their propagandized, and they're developing online communities, which are just as potentially toxic and insular as these offline communities
And
once
again,
were.
having that real life, personal, fucking actual interaction at a coffee a couple times a week, even if you're getting into that thing and you start talking to it with other people, it helps kind of steer your ship every once in a while. Because
Yes.
5 other people at the table will go, Bill, what the fuck you talking about?
you
You know what I
gotta-
mean?
for better or
How
worse.
flat do you fucking think the earth is exactly? You know?
But,
you get them
okay.
into that, some shit like that, you can kind of derail that a little
It's
more.
weird because, like, in Alberta and Saskatchewan, maybe even Manitoba, the smaller communities in Manitoba, the 5 out of the table and the one person might be the liberal. He's like,
Yeah,
you know what? You know what? I think those gay people are
That's
just
the
falling in
problem.
love. And everyone's like, what the fuck? You think the world's flat too? You know, like, so...
You think the world's round too?
Next thing you know, you think the world's older than 6,000 years old.
You
It's
trying to
not
tell
under
me
the-
you think dinosaurs are a real fucking thing?
Yeah,
I got
yeah.
to get you to talk to Ted Nugent real quick.
Well, yeah. So that's the problem growing up in Saskatchewan. If you were that kind of progressive individual, you were pretty much shit on for a lot of it. You were literally in danger for a lot of it. So it's kind of weird that majority rules or peer pressure.
We just had an election during a plague where you could pick a fucking actual practicing doctor or a guy who ran a farm to the ground and killed somebody behind the wheel one time. Okay, well, whatever. Let's stick with the status quo. Yeah.
Yeah, the
So
insurance.
it's working out now. A lot of people are kind of giving their heads a shake now because like the vaccine rollout's been kind of fucked in this province, and we still have the worst numbers out of anybody. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, maybe him not doing anything is not a
Yeah,
solution.
maybe a doctor would have been a good choice. Maybe
insane,
that guy.
right?
Well, and you know, Ryan Miley's book, it's kind of funny because he goes back to the idea that to cure a lot of the ills in society, we need to invest in healthcare. We need to get treatment for people,
Hey,
emotional
you wanna
treatment.
get
We
people
need
healthy,
rehabilitation.
You need to have health care.
Yeah, so that back to this book, you know, she's all about doing your self work, and I really think that's a good one. Also, I also invested, which I have to really dig into, is John Joseph from the Cro-Mags.
Okay.
He wrote Meat is for Pussies, which is another great book on diet, if you're interested in that one.
That's funny. That's funny. I need meat to be tough. Oh yeah, I can be tough on avocado. Fuck you.
Well, welcome to New York hardcore, right?
Yeah,
He's like the
right.
singer for the Cro-Mags.
Yeah.
Like, Meat's for pussies, yo.
Yeah. You want to fight about it? Bitch?
And he has a chapter
I'm
about...
gonna do a triathlon right now. Is that the guy who does the triathlons
it
too?
is.
Yeah.
He writes a chapter about how it interrupts your erections. You can't get laid if you do eat too much meat. Your boner won't work. You know, it's pretty tough guy shit. But the PMA effect is kind of his how positive mental attitude can make you the badass you wish you were or you were born to be by John Joseph. And he took the step off of PMA was coined by HR from the Bad Brains.
PMA
Joseph.
till MDOA.
Yes,
that was
exactly.
fucking Cancer Bats follow that same fucking thing. Just paying homage to that.
Well, and it's funny in the Cro-Mags, they were very influenced by the Bad Brains. All of hardcore was influenced by the Bad Brains.
Fucking right.
And it's funny, the Cro-Mags had a yin yang between Harley Flanagan and John Joseph. John Joseph was like this Krishna guy who was all like, you know, praying Hare Krishna, you know. And Harley was like an like racist skinhead who was like getting in fights and that tough guy, you know. And so there was this whole yin yang vibe, like the Krishna skinhead movement. But John Joseph, when the band kind of separated over the last, 30, 40 years, he ended up going really into the Krishna and living his lifestyle. He does the triathlons, he swims, he bikes, he runs, and he's vegan activist, Krishna activist. So this is his latest book, and he's taken the next step of the bad brains stuff of the PMA effect. And it's kind of cool. It's got
there's him on a bicycle on the back. Even
Is
in the
there?
book.
Yeah,
That's
running,
hilarious. all geared up in his fucking windsuit or whatever that is.
Yeah, clean
That's
and
awesome.
sober, advocating a plant-based diet and a positive lifestyle. Take action every single day to better yourself, and then use respect, humility, and integrity in dealing with others.
And if you want the proof in the pudding, dude's a unit.
Yeah.
You see him, you're like, and 55?
Yeah, I think late
Like,
50s, late 50s, and he's still doing Ironman competition. So not just a triathlon, he's doing the Ironman, and like lots. So, but on the same token, Harley Flanagan is like a black belt instructor at Renzo Gracie's jiu-jitsu.
Oh, sure.
So so he's a motherfucker in his own way, but he's kind of like he's still rocking the black flight jacket and the red laces kind of
He's
stuff.
still on the path.
Yeah.
We'll see. He'll get there one day.
Yeah. I stab motherfuckers. It was a setup. It was. So the thing about Harley Flanagan is he went to Rikers Island for stabbing ex-bandmates at a New York hardcore gig. He went in, and his side is that he was set up and he got jumped and he had to stab his way out for his safety.
Like you do.
Everybody else's side is that he rolled in and started a brawl and just started cutting people. And then he went to jail for a while. He got out. He wrote an album in 2016. I think it was called Revenge. And literally the song is like, it was a setup. It was a setup. Motherfucker set me
What does
up.
it all mean, though?
Yeah.
What's the meaning behind
I
that?
think I joke around with Graham that I think he's on the NMA, the negative mental attitude. There's a PMA and the NMA, right? And he's just like, fuck you up, fuck around.
so
Like,
funny, yeah.
He's like the archetype of the tough guy hardcore. I don't think the incredible like beat down hardcore vibe would have ever happened without like Harley Flanagan's real influence on
Fair
hardcore.
enough. Yeah, he's one of the real gangsters doing it, right?
But I do love Cro-Mags.
Yeah.
You know, they're one of like, I've got a few bands that are real influences when I was growing up. Cro-Mags being one, Slapshot being another, Militant Straight Edge from Boston, and Agnostic Front were huge when I was growing up. Those bands changed my life. Realistically, when I got into those bands, I was like 14 years old. And I was like a racist, wayward kid from like the wrong side of the tracks, blaming everybody else for my shit. And they opened up my eyes to possibilities. You know, Agnostic Front, they used to be racist skinheads, but then they shifted and like they opened up their, hey, I'm Latino, how can I be a racist? And like same thing with Cro-Mags, we're Krishna consciousness. There's that side of street shit, but we're Krishna consciousness. And Slapshot, we're like, don't drink, do drugs, or we'll step on your face.
Yeah.
So, so they were still negative, but they were also posy at the same time, right?
You fucking the anti-hero. Hey?
Yeah.
Like that's been always my fucking vibe. It doesn't characters in movies or video games or how I even kind of picture myself in life, like the reluctant fucking hero. I'll kind of always like take the easy way out, or you know, if I can make a little extra for myself and fuck you, you know, but ultimately I'll do the right thing if you need me to. I'll carry the fucking load. I'll be a smart ass about it.
Healer, you
I've
know?
It's always been my jam. I've always been drawn to that.
Not hero, the flawed hero. Well, you are the hero of your own story, right? What game do you want to play? I'm not going to pretend that I'm like this pristine like white knight because I'm fucking not a white knight. I'm kind of
You
like
couldn't even get on a horse. I don't think. I've never
definitely
pictured
with like 2 or 3 little like steps,
little series of trampolines.
Exactly. I ride an alligator into battle. That's about it. You know,
find anything shorter and wider.
No, exactly.
I want an alligator.
Yeah, that's what I
Give
can
me
get
a
on.
fucking manta ray. I'm gonna cruise around in one of those.
But at least
That's
that
funny.
way, people can't dig in my past and say, "What about this thing you do?" Well, fucking rights. That was me. I was ugly.
And-
I was
and
brutal. I
here-
did fucking stupid shit.
Here's
you
my
know?
thing about all that, right? Like even this Matt Gaetz story, kind of bringing it full circle here. That's a congressman.
Yes.
I'm just a dude who sells fucking shrimp.
Yeah, I'm
you
a
know what I
tattooer.
mean? Like,
And we talk shit
I'm
on
a
a
general
podcast.
idiot. Yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah,
if
we're not
fucking,
role models.
there should be different criteria and fucking, you know what I mean? Like, he could have done everything I've ever done, and I'd still be like, yeah, but I shouldn't be a congressman.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I shouldn't be fucking mayor. You know, like, and I hate that people vote like that too because they're like, oh, he's a lot like me, and it's like, yeah, but should you be running shit? Like, why wouldn't I get someone who seems like they're smarter than me? I don't want
Yeah.
someone like me in fucking charge. I don't pay bills on time. I act irrationally and emotionally. Like, fuck, I
Maybe
don't
a
want me.
doctor that wrote a book.
One again.
You know, who cares about
he not only
healthcare.
can read a book, he wrote a book.
Yeah, that's something to consider. Yeah, we're not role models. We're just 2 guys talking shit about our life experience
Please
on the
do
internet.
not misunderstand that.
Yeah.
Once again, entertainment should not dictate what you fucking do in your life.
Well, does art copy life or life copy art? I wonder about that all the time. DMX, dead, missed the guy already. I've been rocking his shit left and right. DMX was not a role model.
No.
He was an
right?
inspiring entertainer.
Yeah, you can enjoy it and you can miss him, but
It was
it's
a
like,
window into a reality that
yeah.
I'll never live, and I hope I never have to. And I don't know if he lived it, but I suspect he probably lived a lot of it. I hear he was as real as they get, you know. Yeah. And fucking rest in peace.
The fuck else did I
DMX.
just see died recently that I was like, really?
Oh, the Prince guy?
No, I didn't give a shit about that.
Yeah, exactly. Lizard people around the world are mourning.
Yeah, man. More room on the rock in the sun for me. Yeah. Now he'll shed his skin. They'll find another one to fill his role, I'm sure.
Yeah, they're getting together with their eyes wide shut orgies. and
No,
fucking-
it's Mitch Hedberg. Has he been dead for a while, or did
I
he
don't know
just
who that
die?
is.
Mitch Hedberg, a comedian, very
Oh,
famous.
okay.
Used to do all this, like he had a real slow kind of fucking delivery. Seemed like he was stoned all the time,
Oh,
you know.
that
And he would do
guy,
like real
yeah.
goofy fucking, like real goofy shit that you're like, I mean, what'd you just fucking say? And like, anyway, I just seen a thing today about him being dead, and I'm like, wait a minute, has he been dead for a while, or is this a new development?
did that happen?
'Cause,
I'm-
yeah, I don't know the fuck the last time I would have heard him do anything.
I'm
but he was always
increasingly out
funny.
of the loop now
Yeah.
that
Oh,
like
fuck.
social media. I'm backtracking, and
I couldn't find the loop with 2 hands and a flashlight
Ooh,
at
look
this
at you
point.
go. Yeah. I'm finding news articles on Al Jazeera. That's what I'm looking up now. Is because it's a little less biased. It's not like, are you Republican or are you Democrat?
so
It's just
fucking
sort of like,
funny.
Yeah. My girlfriend, she's like, I don't know if
How
I
much
should look it up.
Iranian news have you been watching?
Yeah, will I get flagged by looking up this news source? I'm like, well, you fucking shouldn't. We live in a free democracy, but whatever.
Right. That's yet to be proven.
Yeah, we'll wait and see.
It's
We'll
being
wait and
tested
see.
constantly. It's yet to be proven. The experiment continues.
So we should probably try and find another guest, so it's not just us.
I do
blabbering
enjoy
on.
the guests. Yeah,
I tried to talk Jose into coming in, but he's scared. I think we're gonna
He's
put
up
him on the
here.
hot seat.
Well, you know what? Maybe we should give Sean Cuthan a call and see
That'd
if he
be
wants
good.
to come back.
Talk
It'd be
over
nice to
him
have a
for another
recurring one.
hour.
To catch up with somebody. Yeah, spend the first 5 minutes actually being like, what are you up to? What kind of projects are you working on? Cool. So you wanted to sit there quietly and try not to take up too much of the light? I really want to see myself on there if I'm ever watching this.
Well, yeah, I've got a couple people that I might be able to convince to come down. We'll see what we figure out. But
Yeah, I'd love to do a catch up. I'd love to check in with somebody we had on
can drag
previously.
Dave back on here.
Yeah, Mitch.
He was
See
only
Mitch
like
with some
2 days
stories?
ago, but whatever.
Yeah.
Or 2
Oh,
episodes
you were
ago.
working on it that long ago. Everybody else is months ago. Eh?
Yeah, right.
You're like, seems much more recent to me.
A little bit of a procrastinator. This book says it's healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, is it?
Procrastinate
Put
until
some
you
shit
can't.
off for a bit.
Yeah. Check out some. You might be able to find some quotes. But this one I definitely recommend following the Holistic Psychologist on Instagram. She puts out a lot of really good stuff, good little blurbs,
Yeah.
for you to do
And
self-examination.
not too woo woo and preachy.
No, she balances legitimate science with just a touch of like meditation. She doesn't talk. She incorporates spirit. She's like your mind, your body, your spirit, but that's as far as it goes.
Yeah.
She's not talking like past life woo shit, and that's I can follow her because of that.
Yeah. No, that's what I figured because a lot of people get turned off by that pretty quick.
Yep. As soon as the divine masculine conversation,
Yeah, everybody shut off 25 minutes ago here. Same thing. It's like click. Yeah.
the documentary we were watching, she's like, so when I went into my past life regression, I just kind of shut off. And she's like, yeah.
Yeah, it's either shut off or light up. I gotta have a
My
laugh
past-
about this. I'm not taking this seriously anymore.
My past life projection. I had a dream that this
my
happened.
projection. Yeah,
And I'm really the victim over the last 23 lives I've had. No.
Really? Maybe you should change your fucking script then.
You all right?
Hey,
Yeah.
I'm always the victim. Okay, cool. What should you not be then?
Yeah,
if that has not worked for you, what should you not be then?
I guess it's working for you. You keep doing it again.
Hey, you're here.
again,
You're on
again.
TV. I'm talking to you. What more can you fucking want?
All right.
Living the dream.
Yeah. So see you in a couple weeks, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see.
Drink water, do yoga.
Oh shit, we're offering advice now.
Yeah.
Put chips on your sandwich. It's delightful.
Upgrade the capacity of your anus.
Oh, anus capacity. I have nope. That's it. End
It's
of the
healthy
show,
for everybody.
Okay, I got nothing to add to that.
All right. Love you.
Okay, bye bye.